Hey everyone, welcome back to the Thriving Loudly podcast.
Hey.
I am Aisha.
And I am Trinice.
If you're new here, this is a space where we have real conversations about life, entrepreneurship, personal growth, and navigating spaces where we aren't always represented.
So last week we introduced ourselves, we talked about our backgrounds. She grew up in Arizona, I grew up in Wisconsin, and why we started this podcast. If you haven't listened to that episode yet, make sure that you check it out.
Today we're diving into a topic that we know so many of us struggle with. It's imposter syndrome and showing up boldly in spaces that weren't necessarily built for us.
Yeah, so grab your coffee, grab your tea, wine, whatever it is that you like to enjoy. We won't judge you. And let's get into it. So what exactly is imposter syndrome? It's that feeling that you're not qualified enough, not smart enough, or don't feel like that you belong. Even when you put in the work or when you've earned your spot. I think we've all been there at some point in time. Studies have shown that imposter syndrome disproportionately affects women, especially women of color, because we often don't see people like us in certain spaces. Have you ever experienced imposter syndrome? And then what did it feel like for you?
I experience imposter syndrome now, all the time. All the time. To be really honest, there are times where I feel like my content's not good enough, or I'm not good enough. It could be just a plethora of things. Even when I was working my job, there was times where I was like, man, I don't feel as skilled or, worthy to be in the position I'm in. And so I think, it's affected me, and I think it just really comes down to just building that clear self-belief in yourself and having that self-confidence and knowing you're worthy, knowing your worth, and knowing that you are worthy of being in the space you're in, and also being grateful and kind of looking back at all your accomplishments. And I think when I kind of look back and be like, okay, I've been able to accomplish this, I've been able to do this, I've been blessed to have all these opportunities, I am doing okay. And I just try to always remind myself of that, even though I think just as a person personally, I always strive to get better and grow. And I think that kind of comes with the territory of how I feel sometimes.
I definitely agree with you on that. I think looking back at your accomplishments is huge. Oftentimes we're always looking forward. We're looking at the next goal that we can hit, our next target. But sometimes we don't look back and we don't reflect and just say, hey, wait a minute, I've done so many great, amazing things. I am great at this. I do know what I'm doing. And I think that is so important, with overcoming imposter syndrome. But I will say, I don't think it's something that will ever go away. But I think that if we take the time to just reflect as individuals, I know for myself personally, that helps me a lot whenever I'm feeling like, could have done that better, or, am I really qualified to be here? It's like, yeah, well, you've done this, that, and the third. Absolutely, you are. And that helps me to, kind of shake that off. What are some moments in your life or career, maybe where you felt like you didn't belong?
There was one time, I think this was when I started kind of slowly getting invited to more beauty events, because I'm not really a beauty influencer. That's not really not my realm. So I remember going to this event and I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel so out of place. These girls look so pretty. Their makeup's so good. I'm like, for me, I just splash on my makeup and call it a day. I'm not in that realm, even though I do enjoy beauty products and skincare and all the things. But I did feel like I didn't belong in that space. I remember kind of posting something on my stories saying, I can't believe I'm here. This is so crazy. And people were just like, you belong there. You deserve to be there. They invited you because you're such a large local creator. And I'm just like, oh my God, so I got in my head about that. And I think it's just a gentle reminder that people see you, people can see you. And so I felt very out of place because that's not really my traditional lane.
Yeah.
But that brand and company felt that I needed to be in that room because of the influence I have, you know, with the content I create locally. And so I needed to be in that space. And so that just really reminded me, and, you know, getting encouragement from other followers and friends. They're like, yeah, they're going to invite you. You have such a large platform here locally. So that made me feel good, even though I still get in my head a lot of the times, but it was an awesome, you know, gentle reminder on that.
I think for me, when I used to have my skincare line, I was invited to be a part of this program. HSN had this program. It's called I believe it was the American Dreams Academy. And they picked just different entrepreneurs around the world that had like different products, whether it was skincare, you know, home care products, just all different type of products that you could pitch and potentially get your products on, you know, HSN or either QVC. And so being invited to that was huge for me. And being able to go through their program, I felt like little old me from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Like, why would they pick me? But again, you know, I had to look back and say, well, you've done all these things, you know, with your products, and you've been able to get it into, you know, these shelves and things like that. Like, you can definitely get it on, you know, HSN or QVC. That was a big one for me. But when I actually went to the experience, because I went to 2 of their like big events that they had, and like I said, I was a part of their program as well. So when I was able to get around other entrepreneurs and pitch and be in that environment, it just helped me to realize, you know, why I was doing everything that I was doing, the importance of community, and that I did belong to be there as well.
But do you think imposter syndrome ever really goes away, or do we just deal with it better? Do we learn how to just deal with it? How do you feel about that?
I don't think it ever goes away.
Yeah.
I think we just learn how to deal with it. I like to have tools that I use, right?
Yeah.
So I always say, like, having your toolbox. And so whenever I'm struggling with, you know, maybe I may not feel as confident today, or imposter syndrome, I like to always just kind of go back and see, like, okay, so what are some things that I can do to get myself out of that so that I don't feel like that today? And I think that's the same thing for imposter syndrome. Once you realize that it's always going to creep up on you, I think the higher levels that you go, the more that you're doing, the more that you're striving for, that the imposter syndrome is always going to be there. But when you learn your tools, when you have your toolbox that you can pull out and say, hey, okay, this is happening again. What did I do last time? I think it makes it so much easier, and you're able to get through it quicker versus if you didn't have that, right?
Yeah, no,
what
absolutely.
would you say?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely doesn't go away, because I even feel it now as a creator. You know, I think I overanalyze a lot. I'm an overthinker. So I do struggle with it. I struggle with it a lot, I think, especially in the creator world where, you know, there's so many creators, and it's so easy to get sucked in scrolling on TikTok or Instagram Reels, and just seeing other people's lives and seeing maybe how far they've gotten, and it can mess with your head a little bit. I think something that has helped me is really not scroll as much. I think, you know, as a creator, especially when you get to become full-time, I think it's really important to spend less time consuming and more time creating.
I agree.
Because if you are constantly consuming, it gets harder and harder to produce and pump out content, especially at a full-time level, because you'll just be in your head so much, and you'll just be like, okay, well, how can I make this better? And you're watching other people, you're studying other videos, but then you can't really create because there's like this like fear of, is this going to be enough? Is this going to compare to what they've already put out? And so I've just learned to really not do as much scrolling, especially like on the local level. You know, I follow pretty much all the local creators, but I try not to like consume a lot of their content all the time. And I do support, I do comment from time to time, but I've noticed if I'm constantly consuming, I'm not creating my own content. So I think that is like a huge thing to keep in mind if you want to continue to grow and go farther.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Oh gosh, I try my best not to stay on social media like that and consume all that content, because it's just like, oh my god, after a while it can get to you. So what do you think contributes to imposter syndrome? Like, do you think it's internal pressure? Do you think it's societal expectations, or a little bit of mix of both?
I think it's a little bit of a mix of both. I think there is a lot of internal pressure. I think once you hit one milestone, you're like, okay, I want to get to this next level. What do I need to do to get to this next level? And so you put a lot of pressure on yourself to reach it. Mm-hmm. And then also just societal as well. I think that, you know, we're in a digital age where we're just consuming so much content, and you know, us humans, we weren't meant to see that much content and that much information all the time. And you know, there's so many new studies coming out about how social media is affecting the brain, and you know, what is that going to look like for people who've been creating content for years? Like, how's their mental health? And we see it all the time with creators burning out, quitting. You know, creators who've been doing content for years, quitting and walking away because it is a lot of pressure. You see a lot, you're consuming a lot, and I think it's really good to kind of have, you know, moments where you kind of focus on self-care and your own mental health. And I've been, you know, I try. It's hard especially when you do it as your job and you're an entrepreneur, but it's really important to have those times off of social media to kind of focus on your own self. Instead of watching other people's lives, you need to be living your own life.
Exactly.
You need to be living your own life instead of watching other people's lives, because the more you're just sitting hours and hours scrolling on TikTok and all these platforms, you could be actually improving yourself and getting further in life, whether that's fitness, self-care, mental health, your career goals, your entrepreneurial goals, whatever those may be. But you're spending so much time just watching other people. So I think it's really important to have that, you know, that kind of balance and that clear boundary.
And to piggyback off of that, I think that you brought up a great point. And I think that's why a lot of us have imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Because we're watching everybody's lives and we're not doing enough in our lives. If you were focused more on your life than other people's life, then maybe you wouldn't have it as much.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so I think that, that's the main issue.
I do, because I feel like it's elevated even more as an adult than it did as like a kid. Because it's like at school, you're like, oh, you know, so-and-so's so pretty, or they're so this, they're so that. And like, you just see the people you're around on a day-to-day basis, and you may kind of feel a little insecure or maybe not good enough. But now it's like, you're consuming all this content and you're seeing all these people online. Oh, that person made $1 million. That person got a $50,000 brand deal. They're married and they live in a mansion. They have this Lamborghini. They're doing this. She hit 1 million followers. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, you know, you're seeing all these things and you're like, wow, I suck. It's just, we're not meant to be consuming that much content and seeing that much of people's lives all the time. And it can be a little toxic.
And so just tying back to this question, I think that's what contributes to it. It's because it's social media. You know, we're exposed to way more than what we should actually be exposed to.
Exactly.
And with this wide perspective and all of the different varieties of things that we're seeing, it's just making us be like, oh my God, well, I'm not enough because I'm only here. You know, this person is 33 and they have all these things and I'm only here, you know.
I know, and you see all these people like, oh, this person lost all this weight this quick. They did this. It's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's a whole...
It is.
Messes with your head.
Yeah, so it definitely goes back to mental health and knowing who you are and getting off those apps. Like, I love to put a time limit. I put a time limit on my social media. So it's always like after 15 minutes, like, okay, you got about 5 more minutes and it's time for you to get off of here.
Yeah.
So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. I need to do that. My boyfriend gets on me all the time. He's like, you need to stop scrolling. He's like, I'll be like scrolling before bed, scrolling when I wake up. Like, it's scrolling in between editing. I'm like, my freaking, I think my phone screen time is like 15 hours a day. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm editing, I have my phone, I'm doing a lot, looking at my calendar. There's a lot I'm doing, but it's at very high screen time that I need to get under control. ASAP.
Yeah. Okay, so what's a moment where you had to push past doubt and just go for it? Like, I don't even care anymore. I'm just going to do it.
I would just say quitting my 9 to 5. I think for me, it was kind of a hard pivot because, you know, you get comfortable with health insurance and your benefits and
stable paycheck.
Yeah, guaranteed 2-week paycheck every 2 weeks. You know, even if you put in 50% effort into your job for the month, you're still guaranteed that full check. Yeah. Like, no matter what. You know what I'm saying? When you're an entrepreneur or you do content or whatever it is, that you have to, your effort, it reflects on how much you're making, basically. And so it was a hard, huge risk for me, quitting my job. I mean, I was very strategic at the time. I made sure I had a good amount of savings for at least 6 months. I made sure like I had all my bills, debt paid off. I made sure I had all my checkups done, you know, because obviously you lose your health insurance, you know, so I made sure I had all that out the way. And just made sure I was like in a comfortable spot financially, stable brand deals. And when I quit, and it was kind of at a really good time when Arizona had a lot of eyes on it. You know, we had the Super Bowl coming, and so I was getting picked up for so many different big opportunities. So 2023 was a very strong year for me financially. So it was a good time for me to walk away and not be as affected by everything. But yeah, it's scary. You know, it's scary to leave comfort for the unknown, especially, you know, when you become an entrepreneur, because it's different and things are different every day. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would say for me, it was moving here. So I moved here by myself, again, getting outside of your comfort zone. I made sure that I had savings as well, you know, that I was taken care of financially before I made this huge leap. But it was literally like me saying, all right, F it. I'm just going to do it. Like, this is where I want to be. This is calling me, and I'm going to do it. You know, I was walking away from, like you said, a stable job. You know, I had 401k, everything. Like, set up good. If I wanted to retire there, I could, you know. But I decided that I wanted more for my life. And getting out of the imposter syndrome as well, kind of tying back to that, pushing myself, saying, hey, you know, this is great, but are you going to just settle here knowing that you're not fully happy? Or are you going to take that risk and move to Arizona so that you can see what could possibly be on the other side for you? Yeah. And so making that huge move, you know, thank God for my dad for helping me, you know, do that. And then also my ex, he helped me as well. But that's been life-changing for me. And I'm so happy that I made that move, because I wouldn't be here today if I didn't.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, so now that we've kind of like talked about imposter syndrome and what it feels like, let's talk about how you can overcome it. And, you know, this is also going to be kind of like a therapy session for us. Because, you know, we all kind of experience imposter syndrome in every type of, I guess, any type of era in our life. So, so here's some strategies to overcome imposter syndrome.
I think the first one is just really, like we had kind of talked about before, recognizing your wins is just so important. Keeping track of your accomplishments, no matter what, you know, so that you're able to look back on that when, you know, you may not feel so good about yourself. I think that that's so important.
Yeah, to kind of bounce off of that, reframing negative thoughts, catching yourself in those I'm not good enough moments and flipping the script, and just really just realizing all the things that you can be grateful for in the moment, you know, because there's so much to be grateful for. You know, it's great. You could be grateful to having a job, to coming home to your family, you know, being able to walk and, you know, go to the gym and work out. You know, there's so many things you can actually be grateful for that some people don't have the ability to experience, right? You know, there's some people who are disabled, they wish they could walk and be able to drive to a job, you know? So just kind of really catching yourself in the moments like, okay, like maybe this isn't going the way I want it to right now, but what can I be grateful for in the moment?
Absolutely. I love that. And to piggyback off of that, affirming yourself daily, you know, having those positive self-talks and surrounding yourself with people who uplift you, which I think is so important. You know, it's good to do the self-talk, but I think also having a positive circle with people who, you know, uplift you when you may not be feeling good, or maybe if you are feeling well, but still being supported by positive people who believe in you and who love you and who support you. I think that that's just so important.
Oh, absolutely. And taking up space unapologetically, understanding that you belong because you worked for it. You know, a lot of times we get in our head thinking like, oh, is this, you know, am I worthy of this? Is this, you know, do I, you know, or even if you've grown on social media or grown your business, you're like, oh, am I, you know, can I actually do this? Am I worthy of this following? Can I actually scale my business even further? And, you know, just, you worked for it. You got there. You know, you have a following. People love you for you, or your business is thriving. People are buying from you. And just really celebrate that. You worked to get to where you are, and never think that you can't be in a space. You know, you got there for a reason. You got invited for a reason, and just kind of always keep that in mind and remember that. Okay, guys, on to the next segment. We're actually refilming this, you know, technical hiccups. You know, this is our first go at this podcast. So we are refilming this segment, and yeah, we are going to take it from this section, and let's get going.
So how do we own our space? Confidence isn't just about feeling, it's about action. You don't have to feel 100% ready to show up, you know. Sometimes being bold means faking it till you make it, right? I think we've all been there where we've, you know, had to do what we have to do just to get things done. The power of visibility. When we show up, we create space for others to do the same. You know, we inspire other individuals to, you know, show up as themselves as well. So we'll move into discussion questions. What does being bold look like to you?
I think that's a really great question. I think being bold to me is just kind of showing up authentic to who you are. I think for myself, I've always, you know, struggled with self-confidence, and even now as an adult, you know, I still have those struggles, and I think it's so important to be who you are. You know, not everybody is going to like you, right? And I think, you know, living your authentic self and your truth is so important, and I think that is what being bold is all about.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I would say for me, showing up bold is just, like you said, being your authentic self, you know, just taking risks and actually going after the things that you want. I always pride myself on being a pretty bold person because of, you know, my journey with life and things like that. If I say I want to do something, I do it. You know, I've always been a risk taker, and I think that that is what, for me, my definition of being bold is being a risk taker, going after it, and not really caring what people think, right? Because people are going to say something, whether you're doing good or whether you're not doing good. So you just have to chase your dreams, you know, do whatever it is that you want to do that makes you happy. So that's how I would define it.
Absolutely, I agree with that.
Have you ever had a moment where you had to force yourself to show up confidently?
Yeah, I have. I mean, I think, you know, I'm very much in my real life an introvert, so it is scary to put myself out there, especially in social situations. In the influencer space, there's always different types of events that are happening, and I think, you know, it is scary when you go to an event and you don't really know a lot of people there, and I think for myself, I have to fake it, you know, a little bit, especially if you're networking. I think as an entrepreneur and, you know, as a digital content creator, you know, it's all about networking, you know, it's all about who you know and how to get into those spaces. And so for me, that was one thing, you know, I have to do as a creator. Recently, I spoke in front of college kids, not college kids, but high school kids at ASU for the ASU summer camp that they were hosting for Black high school students. And so I never had to do a presentation in front of that many people. Yeah. Even though they're high schoolers, it's still intimidating. They're teenagers. Yeah. I'm sure they have judgments. But I had to give a presentation on social media, and that to me was very nerve-wracking. I've been on panels before where I've, you know, had, you know, there's been multiple people up front, and, you know, we're kind of answering the same questions, and it's a little bit more conversational back and forth. But doing a presentation where all eyes are on you is really scary. Yeah. But it was a great experience. I think it was really good. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm always, showing up confidently, faking it till I make it. Just even in this space of podcasting, right? This is new for me. Not always feeling comfortable with my weight, but still putting on that game face and showing up, regardless. Which is one of the reasons why I wore what I wore today, because I'm like, I'm just going to embrace my authentic self. I'm going to be confident in who I am. It doesn't matter about, your size. If you know that it's something that you may not, like, you can always change it, which is what I'm doing. So I think when it comes to confidence, you just own who you are, love who you are. Nobody is perfect. There's something special about everybody. And, that's what I had to always keep in the back of my mind. Like, there's something special about you. We all have flaws. We all have things that make us feel like we may be insecure, or, we may not feel comfortable in whichever way. But you have to just show up, and you just have to be you, and you just have to embrace those things, And oftentimes when we think something looks bad to the next person, it doesn't. So that's what I would say. I always force myself to show up confident every single day, because you just have to.
Yeah, you do. And I think people relate to that, and I think it's very relatable. You kind of touching on, your own, personal struggles and insecurities, because we all have them, right? And just something that I've been keeping in mind, and something my boyfriend has been reminding me a lot about, is most people don't really care about you. Like, when you think of the grand scheme of things, he's just like, we're all so focused on ourselves. You're focused on your own insecurities. I'm focused on mine. But like you were saying, we're not seeing, like, I'm not seeing that. I wouldn't know, And so I think we're so in our head how we look that that's every single person out there. They're everybody's focused on them. They're not even like paying attention half the time, and passing you by, because we all have our own issues we're going through in our head, our own struggles. Most people are not focused on you. And I think, just always keeping that in mind it's helping me, because I'm like, oh my gosh, is this good? Is that good? Is that people looking at that? Are they judging me for that? Are they judging me for this video I put out, or whatever? Most people are just minding their business, scrolling past. Like, a lot of people are not focused on that. So I think that's also something, that you can kind of continue to keep in mind, that most people, are so focused on themselves that we're not paying attention to what so-and-so's wearing or what they're doing. We're all in our own zone.
Right.
Yeah.
I think, that's a great point. It's something that I would definitely keep in mind, because we are, everybody's so focused on themselves. And so, yes, like, you see it because you know yourself, but for somebody else, they're like, oh, you look fine. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And then also you can be an inspiration for others as well. And that's how I like to look at it as well. It's like, well, you be your authentic self, you show up, you be confident in who you are in your own skin, and you may be an inspiration for someone else who may feel the same way.
Absolutely.
Like, okay, she's doing her thing, so I'm going to do my thing. So, yeah. How do you deal with the fear of judgment or criticism? Kind of going back to what we just talked about.
Yeah, I mean, I think being a content creator and kind of choosing to put yourself out there, it's something that you'll have to eventually face. Not everybody is going to agree with the content you're putting out. Not everybody is going to like you for the content that you're putting out. And it's definitely a hard pill to swallow, because I grew up always worried about what other people think and how I'm being perceived and how I'm being seen. And that held me back a lot as a kid and as a teenager, and even in my early adult years, when I was, just trying to grow into my skin and growing into who I am. And it's hard, reading comments. Just yesterday I got a lot of negative comments on content I put out. And then, just from time to time, not everybody's going to agree with you on your life. And, the beauty of, doing social media and content creation is you get to choose what you decide to put out there to the world. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of times, like, you don't have to just share every aspect of your life. You don't have to share your relationship or your family or this or any or other personal struggles that you're going through. You can choose to share those things, or you can choose to not share those things, because at the end of the day, people are only seeing like 1% of your life. Snippets. And yes,
they're going to judge and perceive you on those things. But if you want to grow as a creator and, do this, full time and, have this as a career, you do have to kind of get over the fear of being judged and seen, because that comes with the territory. And that's something that I've had to learn, and I'm still learning, and I'm still getting comfortable with that. And even though it's uncomfortable, it's something that I've had to learn to grow with thick skin. And, that's just something that I always tell creators as well, is that that's just how it is, and but you get to choose what you decide to share also. So if people are judging you on your relationship and you feel uncomfortable with those types of comments, maybe don't show as much of your relationship. You don't have to show those things. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. How about you, and how you've dealt with that, through your journey of life, and even now, being and putting yourself out there with this podcast, what are some kind of things that are going through your head with that fear?
So for me, I've dealt with criticism and judgment pretty much my whole life. I mean, even going back to high school, I was always that girl that was not really liked by other girls. I was always the pretty girl, back in the days, and still now. And so a lot of women, girls never liked me. I'll just be quite frank about that. So I dealt with criticism, I dealt with judgment early on, pretty much my whole entire life. So I've just learned to have a thick skin, and just be confident in who I am. Because like I said, people are going to like you whether you're doing good, people are going to like you whether you're not doing good. Somebody always has something to say. Oh, she thinks she's this or she thinks she's that. So I tune out the noise. I don't even focus on what people think about me or, what they have to say about me.
Yeah.
And so that's how I deal with it. Eventually, it becomes mute for you. Like, you just don't even see it anymore. So I'm sure, people will probably say something in our comments, but hey, somebody's going to always say something. So that's how I deal with it. It's just let it kind of roll off of me and try to stay positive.
Absolutely. Just to kind of bounce off of that, since you are kind of putting yourself out there, with content creation and stepping into podcasting, what are some of your initial thoughts? Because I know you're someone who are more behind the scenes on social media, even when you're running your clients' accounts. I'm sure you see certain things and you're just like, oh, wow. Like, now that you're on the other side and kind of stepping into that, what are your thoughts now about fear of judgment and criticism now that you're going to kind of feel more center stage in this?
I think, again, just having that tough skin, knowing that people are going to say something regardless, being aware of that. So when comments and things do come, it doesn't affect me.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of celebrities say this, or like a lot of influencers, they say, I don't even read the comments. I saw something where Chris Brown, I think it was Chris Brown, he said he had his comments turned off for 2 years. Because he was just like, I'm not going to even read the comments. I'm not going to even, go down that rabbit hole. And I think that that's just so important. We have so many great things going on in our lives. Again, people are going to say what they want to say. Like, you can't let that affect you. You can't let that, ruin what you have going on. Because some people just have all day where they can just sit and criticize just because they're miserable with their lives. And they see that you're, doing something great with your life. And so that's always something that I think about too, is these people probably need love. These people probably need, something. And so that's why they're taking it out on you, so don't take it personal, because someone's always going to have something to say. And I think that's going to be, my approach for this is, if, we do see negative comments or whatever, we get criticism or whatever, it's just, again, let it roll off your back. They probably need a hug. I'm sending you love. And I'm gonna go about my business.
Yeah, I know those.
Because we're not for everybody. We're not for everybody, and that is okay.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Those are some really good points, and that's a really good mindset to have. Coming in as a newer creator in this space. I think a lot of times people let a lot of that get to them early on, and I've personally have friends in the space who have let it just take over their mental health. Like, they've let it deteriorate them, to the point where they're just depressed. There's just a lot of other bad stuff happening within their lives that, they're just kind of spiraling.
Yeah.
And you can get tough, you know, it really can when you're reading those things, but you just can't let it bother you.
And I think the important thing here is that's why it's good to know who you are.
Yeah.
It's good to know who you are. It's good to be rooted in yourself. It's good to believe in yourself. And it goes back to confidence. Because when you don't have confidence in yourself, when you don't know who you are going to let those comments affect you.
Yeah.
But when you double down on who you are, you know who Aisha is, Trinice knows who Trinice is, you know, is that true about me? No, it's not. Are they being a hater? Yes, they are. Okay, let me keep it moving. You know, you have to know who you are, because otherwise, that's just like with anything. If you let people tell you who you are and what to do, you are going to spiral, you know. So you have to have a sense of self-worth. And that's something that I've worked on. I've been actually doing self-work like for the last 3 years. It's just grounded down on who is Trinice, what do I stand for, and once you know that, these comments, whatever, whatever.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a great mindset to have. I think that is so important. And you know, just not let it get to you, even though it's hard. I feel it. You know, I understand, but you know, just knowing who you are and what you stand for, and they're just keyboard warriors.
Exactly.
Like, they're chronically online. They probably need to touch grass, you know?
Exactly.
I'm just like, I don't know how people have the time just to go back and forth
either
in the comments. Like,
seriously, I mean, long paragraphs. What inspires you to be bold and take up space unapologetically? I know we kind of just talked about that.
You know, I have goals, and I think I'm very much rooted on where I want to go and what my big vision is, and I try not to let anything get in the way, even though I'm human. You know, I've fallen on the ground, you know, I've fallen, I've gotten back up, you know, I've let things get to me, you know, I'm not perfect, but I just continue to stay rooted and have that tunnel vision on, like, okay, what do I want out of my life, and just keep it pushing. You know, I've been doing social media for so long, but I think when I started to really grow, when I started TikTok, and, you know, people, at least during the COVID era of TikTok, I mean, people were still very opinionated on TikTok, but let's just say when I started Arizona Places, there's a lot of people very, very negative about it, and I'm sure there's a lot of local creators who started around that time can attest to a lot of the negative stuff people were saying about what we were doing, like, why are you sharing this? Arizona's boring, Arizona's this, Arizona's that, and like, I got a lot of hate just for doing Arizona Places and sharing the good about Arizona. Now it's, you know, people have flipped. But like, I was sharing a lot of good, and so it was, some of it was negatively received, and I don't know, I just had to stay very rooted on what I wanted to share and not let all of that get to me, because in the very beginning I would clap back and respond to do video responses.
Look, I got time today.
Yeah, there's some videos of, you scroll down, of me responding to a lot of negative comments, and I, you know, it takes a lot for me to do that now, and you know, I just let people talk, or I may respond to the comments, but I don't do that as much anymore, because I don't want to give that energy the time of day. I keep it pushing, and again, I think it's important just to stay very focused on your goals and what do you want, and don't let all that get to you.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I would say for me, what inspires me to be bold and take up space unapologetically, I mean, just knowing that I am somebody, right? That I'm human, that we're all somebody, and so we all have our purpose in life. We all have there's a reason why God put us on this earth, you know, and so I think that that's enough to inspire me to want to take up space. Once you figure out your why and who you are and what you want for your life, that's enough to move you forward and want to take up space and be like, you know what, I'm not going to settle, you know, and I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
You know, obviously it's a process. Nobody is perfect, but when you build up to that, you know, and you stop settling for less, and you realize that I want more for myself and for my life, you will start to show up bold.
Yeah.
Forget this. I'm getting this opportunity. Forget this. I'm starting this podcast. Forget this. I'm reaching out to Aisha. You know, like, you got to do it.
Absolutely.
You have to do it, right?
Mm-hmm. I
Yeah.
love that. I love that. That's so good. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's such a good point. I love it. All right, we are going to be wrapping up this episode, and today we talked about imposter syndrome, why so many of us experience it, and how to push past it and to show up with confidence.
Yes, that's right. So if you have one takeaway from this episode, let it be you are more than enough. You deserve to be in every space you step into, and if you're there, it's because you belong. Let me say that again. And if you're there, it is because you belong, because you matter, because you are somebody. And so we're going to close with the affirmation. I release all doubt and embrace my power. I belong in every space I enter, and my voice is valuable. I show up boldly, knowing that I am enough just as I am. Because we all are enough, because God created us for a reason, with a purpose and with a plan.
Okay, you guys, we want to hear from you. Have you ever struggled with imposter syndrome? What's one way you push through the self-doubt and you show up boldly? And how do you show up boldly? Share your thoughts with us on social media using hashtag #ThrivingLoudly. And
don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Leave a review. It helps more people find our podcast. And share this episode with your friends, your family, whoever needs a confident boost, or they just, need to hear from a safe space or what have you.
I love that. And going into next week, we're diving into mindset shifts and the power of thinking differently to change your life. You don't want to miss it.
Yep. Until next time, keep thriving loudly.
Bye.
Bye.